Thank you for participating in our interview on these important topics.
Well, you're welcome. I'm very happy to be here.
It's my pleasure to talk with you. Let's start with first question. What do you think will be the impact on the world economy of the confrontation between the West, USA, and the European Union, and the East, China, and Russia?
Well, I think it's very evident that the confrontation, particularly over Ukraine, is having a very negative impact on the world economy and is causing many problems, such as rising prices, shortages of some items, shortages of grain, shortages of oil. And it's also means that a lot of resources are being spent on supporting the Ukrainian regime, the Kiev regime, which is having a big strain on the economies of the US and UK. The US, though it's supposedly the most prosperous country in the world, it's also got one of the biggest debts in the world. I believe they're in debt by about $1 trillion. And only last week, the government in the US nearly ran out of money, and they had to fight in the US Congress to agree something so they could continue to raise revenue. And similarly in the UK, the public debt is very high, and this is a result of trying to support the puppet regime in Kiev, trying to use it as a shock brigade in schemes for regime change in Russia and maybe other parts of the world, and to expand NATO. So, I mean, we're seeing a very bad effect, and I don't think the outlook is very good. In the last 2 years, prices have been going up and up. Interest rates are rising. I don't see anything positive on the economic front happening for some time.
All right. Thank you for your answer. Did the sanctions policy against Russia affect your country?
Yes, Britain implemented very strict sanctions against Russia, and is basically probably done more damage to Britain than it has done to Russia. And they've done silly things like we cannot buy Russian vodka in the supermarkets. And I'm sure the sanctions may be having an indirect effect on the rising prices, because, as I said earlier, we're seeing prices rising quite a lot in Britain. And also, from the point of view of Britain, I mean, we've come out of the European Union, which had a sort of stranglehold over the British economy and deprived us of sovereignty in some areas of the economy. So it would have been good to have had a sort of trade deal with countries like Russia and other countries, to help, the country through Brexit. But because of the sanctions against Russia and the extreme anti-Russia policy that's been adopted, that cannot happen.
Do sanctions work in today's reality, or do they also hit those who impose them?
I think it's correct to say they can hit those who impose them. certainly we're seeing no good effect in Britain, as I've said. I don't think sanctions can really work. We've seen the sanctions by the UN and the US against the Democratic People's Republic of Korea over the issue of their possession of nuclear weapons. And they haven't worked against that country. It's still going ahead with developing nuclear deterrent. And similarly, sanctions are not working against Russia. Uh, you've got to ask the question, can sanctions also work against a big country like Russia?
What are the ways to end the military conflict in Ukraine?
Well, there were proposals for peace that were put forward, and these were sabotaged by none other than Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister. I think the way that peace could be achieved in Ukraine is, first of all, the US, NATO, Britain, and EU have got to stop pouring oil on the fire by sending weapons and money to the Ukraine regime. I think that would be a first step. The Ukrainian regime itself, it needs to recognize the sovereignty of the anti-fascist People's Republics of Donetsk and Lugansk, and it needs to cease hostile actions against those countries. It needs to recognize Russia's sovereignty over Crimea. Ukraine doesn't have any right over Crimea. That was something that was gifted to the old Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic by a certain leader of the Soviet Union who was a Ukrainian. Previously it had been part of the Russian Soviet Socialist Federated Republic. It's actually a Russian region. So that would be an obvious step to ending the confrontation. And of course, there's the whole issue of Nazism in Ukraine, which, they try to deny, but I mean, it's very, very obvious. So Ukraine needs to adopt policy of denazification. They need to remove Nazis from the armed forces and police of Ukraine. I mean, ideally, there should be a progressive anti-imperialist regime established in Ukraine, which would pursue a policy of friendship and cooperation with Russia and Belarus, and also with other progressive and independent countries in the world. But because only the Ukraine, that can only be brought about from inside Ukraine. But as I think, as I said, I think the first steps would be Britain and the US to stop funding the Kiev regime.
Do you think it's feasible to do so in the year 2023?
Well, yes. I mean, they could. We haven't got long left before it's 2024, but they could. Tomorrow, the governments of Britain and the US could sign. Could sign something that would stop the flow of money and weapons to Ukraine. They could do that immediately. And as I've stated above, it would greatly benefit in the peoples of Britain and the US that, they stop wasting money on the Ukraine. I think it's something that could happen, but the trouble is there needs to be strong pressure, strong campaigning for that to happen, and it's very hard in Western countries to organise such campaigning because the influence of the mainstream media, because of increasing censorship, they're censoring anti-imperialist and anti-war voices on social media, etc. So all these things make it difficult, but I think it is a feasible and realizable aim.
Would it be possible to reduce military tensions in the world?
Well, I think the way to achieve that is by withdrawing and dismantling and withdrawing all foreign military bases. And the main culprit, the main offender in that respect, of course, is the USA. They've got a global empire of over 800 military bases throughout the world. This is an incredible number. And there's very few countries in the world where the US doesn't have some kind of military presence. Even in my country, we have several US military bases. Now, why we need them here, I do not know. But this would be a first step toward peace, withdrawing foreign military bases. And as I say, most of these are US. Some are, there's some from Britain and France, and maybe some other countries. But this would be an important step towards world peace.
What should states do to avoid new conflicts?
Well, again, it's a whole question of respecting the independence and sovereignty of other nations, not interfering. The issue in the Ukraine has come about because the elected government of the Ukraine was perceived as being pro-Russian, and it was overthrown by a so-called color revolution. And it's this kind of interference that is pushing conflicts in many parts of the world.
Youth is the future of any country. So it doesn't matter from what state, what nationality or religion. Which message would you like to give to the young generation?
Well, a simple one: oppose war, oppose imperialism, oppose interference and intervention, and please look to the future. The world is yours, and it can only be a good and peaceful world if all imperialist moves for intervention and interference are defeated.
Is there anything else you want to say about this topic?
Not really. I just thought it best to give a very simple message.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's something more what you just want to say about all of this. Maybe something about
Well,
not only this question, I mean about all our topic. Maybe you have something to say.
well, I think the whole issue really running through this discussion is the issue of US imperialism, US trying to dominate other countries, and that's what's caused the conflict in Ukraine. You've got the continuing division of Korea because the US occupy South Korea and are threatening the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And you've got all sorts of moves throughout the world by the US to increase intervention. You've got AUKUS, you know, the agreement between the US, Australia, and UK. So it's, you know, you've got quite a lot of tension throughout the world caused by the US, and you've got the US sanctions against Cuba as well. So, I mean, I see things in terms of people struggling against US imperialism. And because the struggle against US imperialism may take many forms. And in the UK, I'm head of the Korean French Association of the UK, which campaigns for friendship and solidarity with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and to defeat media misinformation about the DPRK. But I've also participated in a campaign of solidarity with the anti-fascists of the Ukraine, of solidarity with the anti-fascist People's Republics. And we've been campaigning since about, I think, 2015, maybe 2016. And I've taken part in many of the protests against the sort of support of the British government for the Ukraine fascists. So in fact, before this all began last year, the British government was sending British military trainers to Ukraine to train the armed forces. So, you know, they've prepared for this for a long time. Oh, and one thing I should mention, Britain is also sending depleted uranium weapons to Ukraine, which are very dangerous weapons. They were used in Yugoslavia and Iraq, and they had long-term effects, you know, which led to deformities in children and many horrible things. So this is a war crime by the British and US governments.
Thank you for your answers and for your opinion, which is really important for us. Thank you very much for participating.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. I was very happy to give my opinions and, you know, support the struggle for peace and the struggle against US imperialism. Thank you.
We're glad to know your opinion. So thank you. And that's it for today. Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
You're welcome.